Уважаемый господин Анатолий Tokunov, Rector of the Moscow State Institute of International Relations and President of United Nations Association of Russia, and Ambassador Vitaly Churkin, Permanent Representative of Russia to the United Nations, and Ambassador Sergei Orjokinich, Director General of United Nations Office in Geneva and Undersecretary General, and distinguished guests, distinguished faculties, dear students. Добрый день. Я очень рад быть здесь с вами сегодня. What a pleasure it is to be with you today. Thank you very much for your warm welcome. Yes, I'm fascinated. It's a great honor for me to be here with you, to share some of my thoughts with the young leaders of the future on major issues of our common concerns. And it is, again, a great honor for me to speak to such a distinguished and informed audience in this МГИМО. Your prestige extends far and wide to every corner of the globe. Your roster of alumni includes so many world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and ambassadors, and scholars, and writers. I understand that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov studied here. So your esteemed Ambassador Vitaly Churkin and also Ambassador Sergei Orjonikich, they are all sitting in the front row. And you may know that you are Director General of UNESCO, Dr. Irina Bokova. She is in fact Bulgarian. She is the first woman to serve as a Director General of the United Nations Economic and Science Organization and Cultural Organization. Mr. Rector, you honor me greatly by bestowing upon this honorary degree upon me. I accept this honor humbly, knowing that you honor the United Nations through me. The United Nations has its indispensable role in today's world. A world that is changing dramatically, a world where no nation can go it alone, a world that more and more recognizes that nations must work together to overcome so many global challenges which are now happening. Ladies and gentlemen, dear young students, the United Nations was born of a common aspiration to to save succeeding generations from scourge of war, to affirm fundamental human rights, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. This is the pledge of the United Nations, and these are the goals that endure today. As a founding member of the United Nations in the aftermath of Second World War, you today, Russians, are the keepers of that flame. As a world power and one of the permanent members of the Security Council, we need you to fill these promises. We need your engagement across the United Nations agenda. We need Russia's leadership in our modern world. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the challenges as well as I. Terrorism, nuclear proliferation, climate change, growing poverty, and weakened global trade, economic and financial problems in urgent need of overhaul. No single nation, however powerful and however resourceful one may be, like Russia, You have the largest territory, vast natural resources, and very powerful. United States, however powerful you may be, these global challenges cannot be addressed alone. We need to have a concerted efforts. As I have said, they require that all nations work together. 192 members of the United Nations, they must be working as one United Nations. Nations unified and united in common cause. Earlier this year, to the General Assembly, I reported my priority agenda for 2010. I have presented basically 7 priorities called Agenda 2010. This first comes how we can overcome abject poverty of the world, how we can help those developing countries, most vulnerable countries who need our urgent help, and how we can empower women, and how we can realize the gender equality, and how we can address this climate change, and how we can make this world free from fear of nuclear weapons, and how we can promote and protect the human rights, universal human rights of all the people, and how we can address all these deadly regional conflicts which we see all throughout the world, particularly in Africa, in Middle East, and many parts of Asia. Then lastly, that we need to make this United Nations a more efficient and effective and transparent and accountable organization. Those 7 priorities are my commitment as Secretary General of the United Nations. Today, I would like to discuss with you, not all 7, it will take a long time, therefore I will just state 3 priorities. Those are Millennium Development Goals, through which we can help those most vulnerable countries in the world. And second, nuclear disarmament. And thirdly, global peace and security. First, the Millennium Development Goals. In 2000, when whole international community celebrated new millennium, 2000, the world leaders gathered at the United Nations. They adopted a blueprint for 21st century. By 2015, 5 years from now, they agreed and committed themselves that they will cut by half the number of abject poverty. We still have 1 billion people who go to bed hungry every night. 1 billion people. We have a serious food security. There are so many people who are not able to be treated when they are sick, HIV, AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis. There are many diseases which are not known even. And how we can provide decent education to women, and how we can reduce the mortality rate, and how we can reduce the number of deaths of children who die from preventable diseases even before they meet 5th birthday. There are so many children who die even before they become 5 years old. Those were the commitment. And relatedly, we have to address climate change. You might have heard there was some controversies over this intergovernmental panel on climate change, whether their report was based on really scientific findings. Whatever the controversies might have been, I can tell you, I can confirm that this climate change is happening and accelerating much, much faster than you may realize. I know that there is a division among some scientists, even in Russia. Therefore, last week I have constituted an independent panel composed of world-renowned scientists, members of Inter-Academy of Sciences Council. They will review how we can strengthen these reports of IPCC, how they can assess these reports. But remember, I can tell you very clearly that this climate change is the one which the whole international community must address as soon as possible. I discussed with President Medvedev just before I came here. He is very much committed, and he showed his great leadership in Copenhagen. And we adopted, even though it was not a formal adoption, we agreed on a political level, a very important elements. Russia has committed to cut 15 to 25% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 against the level of 1990. This is very important. Second, nuclear threat. Russia, as one of the biggest nuclear weapon possessing country, Russia has a very special and important role to play, and even responsibility, political and moral responsibility, to contribute and commit themselves to make this world free from fear of nuclear weapons and proliferation of nuclear materials. President Medvedev is again committed. I'm very much encouraged that the Russian Federation and United States are close in finally agreeing to follow on treaty measures, succeeding and extending this START treaty. With that, I'm sure that this summit meeting, which will be held in April next month to discuss nuclear weapons arsenals, will be a success, and that will have a huge positive impact on NPT review conference, which will be held in New York in May. Here too, the world looks to Russia for leadership. I welcome Russia's support for the goal of achieving a world free of nuclear weapons. The NPT review conference, which will be held in New York at the United Nations after 5 years, since 2005, will be a major opportunity. We must sustain the current positive momentum for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. We must also get the multilateral disarmament machinery working efficiently again. Russia's support for negotiations at the Conference on Disarmament. We have a Secretary General of Conference on Disarmament, Mr. Orchonikiche. They must work on a verifiable treaty, banning the production of fissile materials, and that I am working very hard. I also value Russian efforts on an international treaty on the prevention of the placement of weapons in outer space. Let us also cooperate to confront the threat of nuclear terrorism. I applaud Russia's contributions to reducing this risk. Russia's efforts to combat broader issues of terrorism, illicit drug trafficking, and organized crimes, all these cross-border crimes, are also welcome. And of course, Russia is an important partner in implementing the United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy. Like many other nations, Russia has been a victim of ongoing terrorism. 2 years ago, at a symposium organized by the United Nations on supporting victims of terrorism, I met a mother and a child who survived this that infamous attack in Beslan. Since then, I have mourned the United Nations colleagues who have lost their lives in similar attacks in Algeria, in Pakistan, and in Afghanistan. These brave men and women lost their lives working to make the world a much better place to live in. This brings me to my third point, how we can maintain peace and security around the world. Terrorism thrives where governance is weak. Human rights are trampled and conflict prevails. The United Nations depends on Russia in all our efforts to prevent and resolve deadly conflicts around the world. As a permanent member of the Security Council, the Russian Federation has a unique responsibilities. One of the main reasons I am here in Moscow is to attend in quartet meeting to facilitate and to encourage the Middle East peace process. The meeting comes at a critical moment. Peace talks in the Middle East have not moved forward. We have seen so many frustrating up and downs in the peace process in Middle East. All this region in the Middle East have engulfed in some way or another a conflicts, bilateral conflicts, or some other regional conflicts. This is quite frustrating. There are many people whose human rights, whose humanitarian conditions are abused and living in miserable conditions. We need to see an end to provocations from any quarter. And I have been urging that until such time when this final resolution is realized, all the parties should refrain from taking any unilateral actions which will or may undermine or prejudice the outcome of the final negotiations. The two-state solution is the only route to peace and security for both people. Achieving it is urgent. I'm particularly worried about the situation in Gaza. You might have seen me visiting Gaza January last year. United Nations facilities and schools, they have been all bombed and destroyed. I was standing in front of UN warehouse still smoldering. And we have seen more than 1,000 people, civilians killed during that conflict. And I have been visiting at least 3 countries a day in the Middle East region to draw out a temporary ceasefire. And I was able to draw out temporary ceasefire. This temporary ceasefire must lead to a permanent peace in the Middle East. That is why I am here. I'm going to discuss with my Russian counterpart, Foreign Minister Lavrov, and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and European Union counterpart, Catherine Ashton, and also Tony Blair. I hope that we will have a deep, in-depth discussion which may have a political impact to encourage Middle East peace process. The recent Israeli policy of settlement as well as a border closure destroys hope of a better life for all people, hope for recovery from the destruction and pain of war. As policy, it is counterproductive. It undercuts moderate and empowers extremists. It destroys legitimate commerce and encourages smuggling. When I visit Israel tomorrow and the occupied Palestinian territory, immediately after the quartet meeting, I will go to Gaza myself again to see for myself how the conditions and humanitarian conditions and human rights conditions are. I am determined to improve these conditions in Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, other peace and security issues demand our joint and determined attention. I discussed some of these today with President Medvedev and Foreign Minister Lavrov. Russia is an indispensable member of the six-party talks on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Its close relationship with both Koreas and other regional neighbors has unrivaled potential for promoting joint economic projects and cooperation in the region. As I come from Republic of Korea, even though I represent the United Nations as a Secretary General, I cannot deny that I'm one of Korean citizens. Therefore, you may see that I have a special attachment to see the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, maintaining peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. I myself used to engage directly in the negotiation of six-party talks. And while I was serving as a foreign minister, I was able to draw out the first six-party joint statement in September 2005. That has paid the foundation of this denuclearization process. Now, regrettably, the six-party process has stalled, and North Korea has tested against second nuclear weapons, and everything has now stalled. I sincerely hope that with active participation and initiative and cooperation of Russian government, all six parties will be able to resume their talks and to expedite this denuclearization process. We count on Russia's creative diplomacy on this matter. Russia's diplomacy is also crucial for our efforts to peacefully resolve the Iranian nuclear issue. International efforts to supply nuclear fuel to the Tehran research reactor offer a significant opportunity to build trust between Iran and international community. In this regard, I highly commend Russia's active engagement in this endeavor. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, let me say clearly, the world needs Russia's sustained and creative engagement across the United Nations agenda. Together, we can and we must build a stronger United Nations for a better world. On this, I know we have Russia's strong support and engagement. At the opening of the 64th session of the General Assembly, President Medvedev spoke of the unique international legitimacy of the United Nations, and I quote, "We all must preserve and strengthen this shared wealth of the peoples of the world," unquote. Russia is a principal stakeholder in this shared wealth. Today, I appeal to you, the leaders of tomorrow, to preserve and enhance this precious legacy. I'm talking to you because I believe that ultimately the world will depend upon you. You have to lead this world. My time will last shortly, whatever capacity. And the times for all these generations, they will have to pass this world to you. Therefore, that's why I'm really counting on your leadership. You may study different subjects, curriculums, but they are not important. What is more important is that you need to learn to become a global citizen. Broaden your vision, broaden your scope. You are not just a Russian citizen. You are not just a citizen from Korea or many 50 countries. I understand that there are students from at least 50 different countries. You may come from different countries, but the purpose of your study in this distinguished institute is to broaden your scope. Look beyond Russia. Look beyond your geographical territory. That is the way to be a global citizen. We need at this time the potentiality of this global citizen. We need people like you, and particularly the young people among you, full of energy, vision, and ideal and ideas. You may have fresh ideas. This idea is the one which we need. At this time, I'd like to tell you one more advice. Put your head always above the cloud. That means you have an idea, high idea, but stand with your 2 feet firmly grounded on the feet, your feet on the ground. That means you need to be very practical. If you are not practical, with only high ideas, you may fall. If you are just stuck on the ground without idea, you may make no progress. That will be very important, a vision, and broaden your vision. That's what I appeal to you. And lastly, think of the United Nations. And what United Nations mean to you, what the world means to the United Nations. United Nations is a collective body of a whole this international organization. But United Nations cannot be sustainable without the help and cooperation and full participation of all of you. Maybe some of you may become United Nations staff or even Secretary General of the United Nations. I'm ready to give my post to some of you, any of you. Again, finally, it's true that all nations have their interest, their national interest. But today, we live in a world where those interests are best served and best advanced when cooperation prevails over conflict, when a world where multilateralism trumps unilateralism and diplomatic engagement is the most powerful force for change. As Russia well knows, the world is the United Nations. Спасибо большое. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, уважаемый генеральный секретарь, за исключительно интересное, глубокое выступление, где было поднято так много вопросов, не только связанных с деятельностью Организации Объединенных Наций, а вопросов, которые сегодня и в практическом плане стоят очень остро и решаются международным сообществом. Некоторые успешно, некоторые не очень. И мне кажется, что вот искренний тон вашего выступления и достаточно острая постановка вопросов – это призыв к молодым, и не только к молодым, исследователям, ученым, всем, кто имеет сегодня возможность услышать вас и в этом зале, и посредством интернета и телевидения, задуматься над этими проблемами, задуматься над возможными решениями этих проблем. У нас есть счастливая возможность, дорогие друзья, некоторое время для того, чтобы задать вопросы генеральному секретарю. Сколько времени у нас? Да. Генеральному секретарю. Время мало, поэтому я прошу решительно. У кого есть вопросы? Прошу вас. Задавайте на английском, чтобы...
In English, thank you. Honorable Secretary General, Maxim Shmelov, member of the Moscow International Model United Nations Secretariat team. In April, from the 12th to 16th, MGIMO will host an annual Moscow International Model United Nations that will see more than 600 participants from all over the world and all around Russia. What wishes would you like to convey to them? Thank you.
one of the very practical ways to broaden your scope to become a global citizen is to actively participate in this model United Nations. If I tell you my own experience, when I was a college student, I participated for the first time in Model United Nations. Then when I joined the Foreign Ministry, in fact, I worked as President of the Security Council, as I acted as a President of the Security Council. And for that, I got the Foreign Minister's citation, in fact. That is why I'm now working as a Secretary General. That has given me much broader. We really acted as if we were representing a certain country. You have to read all this verbatim record of the United Nations or Security Council. What would be the position of those countries you represent? As I said, every country has different national agenda. Try to act as if this is real. If you think this is model United Nations, you may sometimes participate without much sincerity or seriousness. When you really prepare and act as if you really represent that particular country and study in depth the real problems, the real concerns of those countries, that is the way you can really make. Sometimes you may engage in verbal fightings with your colleague representatives. By doing that, you can really broaden and deepen your understanding, and that will be the living experience. That will be the living experience. When you really join the United Nations or any other international organizations, then you will be far better off than other people. So enjoy your Model UN, and I have been sending out video messages or written messages to those Model UN conferences. And at least I have participated myself as a Secretary General three times or 4 times and addressed those Model United Nations. I understand that next meeting is going to be held in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and next time will be in Korea maybe next year. So there are many such good opportunities, and I hope you will learn a lot. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Mr. Pan Gi Mun, on behalf of all our students, it's a great honor for me to thank you for coming to our university and delivering such an interesting, detailed and precise lecture. Well, my question is going to touch upon such a matter as efficiency of the United Nations organization. Lately, the United Nations has been widely believed to be less efficient as it used to be in the past. And the actions it has undertaken in the regional conflicts, such as in Afghanistan, in the southeastern Europe, in the Horn of Africa, has not brought stable and durable peace to the region. Could you possibly comment on that and say if any urgent reforms are to be implemented in the United Nations, in which fields is it to be taken? Thank you so much.
I think not only United Nations, every government or every organization, there is always some room for improvement. The United Nations has also some space, a room for improvement or reforms. That I admit, and I humbly accept all these criticisms or comments or suggestions to make the United Nations a better organization. UN was founded 64 years ago, and during over 6 decades, while addressing many global challenges or regional conflicts, we have seen successes and frustrations and failures. That we are learning from our lessons. We are learning from failures not to repeat those failures. And we always want to make success. Then I admit that there are still something more to do. As a Secretary General, I have made it one of the top priorities. As I just said, my 7th priority agenda is a reform of the United Nations. I am committed to make this organization, United Nations, more accountable, a very transparent and efficient one. I have taken already many actions, many reform measures. We have progressed a lot, but which have not been properly appreciated. For example, as I take accountability as one of the highest priority, and I have asked my senior advisors, like above the rank of Assistant Secretary Generals, like Mr. Orjonikic or Lin Pasco or anybody, senior advisors. First of all, they should be accountable to me. They should identify their priorities. And at the end of the year, those priorities will be examined and reviewed by the Performance Review Committee. And if they are not meeting those benchmarks, I'm not going to sign for the extension of their contract. That was for the first time in the United Nations history. And I have asked all senior advisors to declare their financial assets publicly. The United Nations has been criticized for this corruptions and all this malfunctioning or ethical problems. Now, during the last 3 years, all senior advisors or those people who are dealing with the procurement businesses, they have to declare all their assets. And there is a transparent checking when they are put on website and examined, thoroughly examined by a third independent accountant, PricewaterhouseCoopers. This is a well-known, internationally well-known accounting audit company. They are auditing everything there. And there are many other issues. I have made, again, the very clear dispute tribunal systems. When the staff do not have a proper way of addressing their grievances, then I have made a very legally binding tribunal, as you see in local country, national governments, like district court, appeals court, and Supreme Court. We have these systems which have been established. Therefore, in terms of transparency, accountability, I think we have made great progress. In terms of efficiency, effectiveness, I'm still working more. First of all, I have streamlined all these bureaucratic appointment systems into 3 systems, which you may not easily understand how complex systems, bureaucratic systems which we have. I'm now in the process of streamlining all these so that all the staff can work in a much more strengthened sense of job security, but their job should be the subject of accountability and review. And those are something which I have been doing. You will see much difference. And I have also, as a part of reform, to make this organization gender equality based, then I have increased by 40% the number of senior women staff, advisors in the United Nations. And this is what I'm going to continue.
Honorable Secretary General. My name is Veronika Anosova. I am the Secretary General of Moscow International Model United Nations. Thank you for your wishes to the participants of Model United Nations. I would like to ask you a question. If the next Secretary General may be a woman. Thank you.
As I said, I'm ready. Now, just to let me briefly mention, when I first became the Secretary General, when I was running for this job, there was such ideas. Now, it has always been the men's world, the United Nations. Why not having a woman Secretary General? And somehow, I was able to be elected. Now, what I have been doing, I have been changing these senior positions which have been held by men during last 62 years, 3 years, and 4 years. By changing by women leaders. There are many senior posts, and particularly posts like a UNDP, or there are many areas, and we have not had any such special representatives of Secretary General who are the leaders of a UN mission, where there are tens of thousands of peacekeepers. The perception is that this is a man's job. So I changed the whole this. I have appointed at least 12 new women under Secretaries General. And I have appointed 4 special representative women of the Secretary General, who are the head of missions. This is a changing world. Maybe I'll have to first fill all these jobs, then let's see next time. It's possible that the woman can be next to Secretary General. Yes.
판 유행 사무 청정 선생님께서 안녕하십니까? Mr. Secretary General, would you be so kind to answer the following question? Do you think that the radical division on the developing and the developed countries is inevitable? If no, what kind of measures are supposed to be the most effective in dealing this very issue? Thanks so much. 대단히 감사합니다.
Her Korean is much, much better than my Russian. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 감사합니다. There's no reason why there should be a divide between developing and developed countries, haves and have-nots. Our goal is to promote the harmonious development and provide all resources and opportunities to all the people in the world. That is what I said, Millennium Development Goals. Millennium Development Goals promotes and has a vision to realize that world. Of course, we may not be able to finish all that goals by 2015. By 2015, at least we should be able to cut by half the number of poverty. That's our goal. At least we should provide the women and girls decent primary education. It's not the college education, even primary education. We have made good progress. We have to reduce maternal mortality rate as much as we can, and child mortality rate. 1 woman dies every 1 minute. Now, we have spoken 45 minutes. Unfortunately, 45 women must have died by this time. So that's just unacceptable, intolerable situation. That I'm working very hard to reduce this. Then after 2015, we will have to have another blueprint, how soon we can make this whole world evenly and harmoniously prosperous. That may be a very big challenge. Therefore, what I've been urging is that developed countries, industrialized countries, like Russia. Russia now has become a donor country. Then they should come out with a generous contribution to help those people. By 2015, we will be able to have 0 death from malaria. That's a significant progress. We have almost eradicated polio, except a few countries, only 4 countries in the world, we see polio. Smallpox has already been eradicated. There is no such things. Now, our first target will be no more death caused by malaria. We may not be able to eradicate malaria itself, but at least no death. So we are now making very steady progress. But still, the world is not even. It's divided, as you said. But our vision is to have all the people around the world, 6.5 billion people, living in harmonious prosperity. Thank you very much.
Igor Shelaev, Association of Students. Honorable General Secretary of the United Nations, first of all, thank you for visiting our university. We students, the future leaders, really appreciate this very much. And thank you, Ambassador Turkunov, for giving us such an opportunity. And would you be so kind to answer the following question? What is your personal position on recognizing so-called non-recognized entities? And can this process threaten the world peace? Thank you.
Once again, please.
Without that, you can choose.
What is your personal position on recognizing so-called non-recognized entities? And can this process threaten the world peace?
Вы имеете в виду кого? Приднестровье?
Непризнанные государства, да.
Other countries which are not recognized by
I see. Now, unfortunately, there was a conflict in that region, and the whole world was very much concerned. As a Secretary General, I have been really trying to maintain peace and stability there. We also wanted to provide humanitarian assistance for those displaced persons. There used to be United Nations missions, but with the Security Council's decision, this United Nations mission had to withdraw. And there is no such UN mission. Now, there needs to be a certain mechanism. United Nations, European Union, and Russian Federation, and some other key partners have been meeting in Geneva. We have established a sort of incident prevention and response mechanism. That is a mechanism which will try to prevent any such unexpected incidents from happening, and if it happens, how quickly and how efficiently we can respond to that. I think we have made some progress. Recently, I have appointed my special United Nations representative who will work together with the parties concerned. Let us hope that we will be able to maintain the peace and stability in the region and we will keep working to that. Thank you.
Дорогие друзья, я знаю, что и мне показывают на часы уже наши друзья из секретариата. Я хотел бы, высокочтимый генеральный секретарь, еще раз сказать вам огромное спасибо за то, что вы побывали у нас, пожелать вам, организации, больших успехов в деятельности, пожелать здоровья, счастья и сказать еще раз, вот как наша студентка, сказать по-корейски вам камсахамнида. И